Ragnarok and Unreal 5 delayed, but could it be worth it? Major fixes invites PvPers back to Ascended. And Snail Games stoop to new lows. I am not making this up. You're right, kids, it's Raasclark, and welcome to your regular ARK community news. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share around, and let's get into it. So with the arrival of Community Crunch 4.5.1, we got a lot of grave news, unfortunately. Delays ahead of us, and big delays as it seems, but with some explanation and maybe even some hope of what's to come. At the very least, there was a lot of transparency with this crunch, with Wildcard explaining the reasons behind all of the decisions. But the big almighty 5.5 Unreal 5.5 upgrade that originally was 5.3, I can't even remember now, was it 5.3, 5.4? Anyway, it's 5.5 now, is delayed. It's delayed until between April the 15th to May the 15th, which of course is going to be met to a lot of anguish. A lot of people are holding a lot of promise for this update, but the devs explain exactly why this is pushed back even further than they'd anticipated. With all of their core engineering resources at the company focused on it, they're still working on eliminating a bunch of bugs that have occurred as a result of this, and it's quite well documented within the industry that 5.5 has definitely provided a lot of teething issues for a lot of games out there. However, with a lot of promise on performance that Wildcard go into more detail with this one, explaining how beneficial this actually might be, the delay in awaiting this much anticipated engine upgrade ties hand in hand with a upcoming map release, but also seems to make it transparent that there was a real drive for the engine to run ARK rather than ARK run the engine when Ascended first launched. The devs have recognized this and are obviously now spending much more time to ensure the benefits received are well worth the wait. With the big one being optional map downloads, because Ascended takes up already far too much space. You can obviously plainly see that already, and with more maps around the corner, it's only going to get bigger. So with this update, we're going to see the option to decide on which maps you want installed so you can conserve that memory space. However, there is a bit of a concern with content spread across all of the maps, dino spread across all the maps. You're still going to need to download those maps if you choose to, for example, play with a Dreadnoughtus on the island. A big one is using the tools of 5.5 to ensure better quality map releases, looking directly at Ragnarok, which is noted to being developed specifically within this 5.5 version, which means it'll be taking advantage of Unreal Engine 5 much more than any map we've seen before, with some great news and some very sorry news as a result of this. There is a hefty delay for this. Who didn't have that one expected? But it's probably longer than we hoped for. It's going to be dropping on June the 2nd. That is a few months away. But what they have noted, this is being directly worked on by the original creators of the maps, obviously with the passion they had of the original Ragnarok release, and perhaps all of the features and map additions they wished they'd brought to ASE, and there was quite a few that never made it to the final cut, they could bring to this ASA version. However, with a chunky delay, I feel there's going to be a few rocky months in awaiting Ragnarok, and especially with competitive games dropping over the next month or two as well, the popularity of ARK may get even worse before it gets better. And with Ragnarok being delayed, is there a possibility we could see a delay in Valguero as well? Hopefully not, because this one is being worked on by map creator Nakatus, and especially looking at Lost Colony, I really hope we don't see a delay on that one and we do see it by the end of the year. My guess would be December. Another reason for the delay is mods, and it's great to see the Wildcard acknowledge this, that in bringing this engine update, it is going to break a load of mods. In fact, probably all the mods. In fact, probably ARK itself. The devs recognize this, and as a result, they are actively working with as many of the most popular and premium mods as they can to make sure they are all up and running and up to speed in time for this engine upgrade. So another reason to push it back, but it seems they are just trying to do what they can to damage control when this giant engine, mod-breaking engine upgrade arrives to us. With a note there might be another delay with the Excellent Adventure event. It's delays all round, but is there a diamond in the rough with this news? Possibly. because with the arrival of this update, there's going to be a new one-click low system requirement mode, which will allow even the lowest graphics cards out there down to 1080 to be able to run this and actually see what you're doing without some awful frame rate issues. With the devs explaining this won't look pretty, but it'll be similar in quality to the shader Model 4 mode of ARK Survival Evolved, which is definitely a big win for ARK players out there that simply can't play this and that don't want to run this at the best graphics possible which this game was supplied with. Looking especially at Xbox Series S users that already are having a lot of performance issues with this game. It's noted, it's obvious that this game was delivered in trying to dial everything up to 11, utilize everything with Unreal Engine 5 right to the very max, and disregards any performance issues for lower end users. And especially looking at the PvP community that I guess we've got to accept by now want to lower those performance issues as much as possible for the least amount of input lag they can get their hands on. There's even greater news that's just dropped onto ARK Survival Ascended in the form of a giant massive patch. Dropped yesterday, there was a monolithic series of patch notes covering a bunch of QOL additions, a bunch of new gameplay features, a bunch of new content surprisingly added to the Bob's Tall Tales DLC, where we found new attachments to the battle rigs, namely Cannon Turret, Sludge Dumper and Mine Dropper, and even some new Wasteland skins to small storage boxes, large storage boxes and vaults, looking very nice. But a big one to pick out, and we'll pick out a few more too, with this really deserving its own standalone video to cover all of the features, and it really does deserve it because there are so many new QOL additions, is the new option to allow TPV mouse smoothing, with seemingly a lot of PvPers out there getting very excited about this one in particular because input lag. This apparently helps that a lot, and we can find big PvP content creators such as Zavi and Bam all expressing a lot of interest over this great news, and hopefully this could be them arriving back to ASA as a result. As mentioned prior, with the downgrade options available upcoming, could this be the turnaround that PvPers have asked for? I know a lot of PvPers out there have gone back to ASE simply for performance issues, simply to make sure they can run the game pretty well. Is this the moment? Is this the turnaround that we needed to see PvPers come back over to ARK Survival Ascended? I guess only time will tell, right? Because along with that, there's now new frame generation options available, allowing you to completely turn it off if you'd prefer, or to use the new FSR upscaler with a bunch of quality modes available to do so too. All of which, again, with all of these options available, I think we do need to have a deep dive into testing every single variety of these and see which works well. I guess it's going to be a bit system specific with mine in particular, but I feel like this is something to definitely dive into to get a broader understanding, at least to layman's terms required people like me and you, right? On top of that, wind turbines have finally been rebalanced for the longest time possible. Anybody and everybody has been able to use wind turbines as simply a generator, a replacement to a generator, a free generator, which is insane. It's taken this long to be resolved. The fact is, it was never meant to be this wind turbine, this free generator we wanted. It was meant to be something that was balanced for Scorched Earth, because power generators on Scorched Earth overheat, and wind turbines were introduced as the replacement to them, and was meant to be with some offset on using them and some maintenance to make sure you can keep using them, not just simply having something for free opposed to having something that requires gasoline in a power genny. And you'll find now that they take decay damage over 14 days, stopping at 10% health, where they'll cease providing power until repaired, as well as now not working underwater. But come on, did you think that was meant to be a thing? Something else that wasn't meant to be a thing, Dreadnought's taming, that I can't believe took this long to resolve. And it's a bit of a shame that it took this long, because I imagine anybody that really wanted one has now got one and took advantage of this. On servers, if you wanted to tame one of these, it was very, very easy to do so by taking them to an element vein, an alpha element vein, and finding that any corrupted creatures that spawn as part of the taming process all would freeze in place. While single player, you had to perform the taming process as expected, as intended, with all of the corrupted hordes coming to you whilst you defend the Dreadnoughts. On servers, they just simply froze in place to make this the easiest tame ever. That has now been resolved. You now have to legitimately tame this. So, you know, if you didn't get one up until now, big rip, but why didn't you take advantage of it up until now? And again, with so much to cover here, I feel this deserves its own video entirely, and we'll definitely run through that, deep diving and going into detail on every single patch note. This is going to be some giant video, but it's probably going to be worth it because there is a lot of quality of life stuff to be looking at, and hopefully a sign of things to come with a bunch of performance and bug fixes with this patch. It's great to see, and can you really say Wildcard don't fix anything when you see giant patch notes like this? And dialing quickly back to that Ragnarok release date, June the 2nd, do you remember there's something else that's meant to be releasing on June the 2nd? A certain other map that was revealed last week that we of course got a lot angry about, and well, I think it's very obvious to you and me what's going on here, right? Why on earth would this be released on the same day? I think there's some subtle pokes to say, look, come and buy this, don't buy that. This is what you want, Ragnarok. It has to be. There's no way. Wildcard didn't target this release date specifically to throw a middle finger back at Snail Games for the middle finger that Snail Games threw to them with their announcement of ARK Aquatica. And speaking of which, publisher Snail Games released their end-of-year quarterly reports where they had a webcast and they talked through a bunch of stuff. There wasn't too much to take away from this in regards to ARK. There was a bunch of profit made, but they seem to be more focused on other investments. Once again, things like Bellrise, their new active adventure that they've definitely been pushing over the last 6 months or so. And they did talk about how excited they are for the console release for this. Believe it or not, they mentioned they doubled down on the use of AI. Can't believe it after the comments reception they got over that Aquatica trailer, but apparently they are still invested in AI, though this was, I guess, only a week after the response to this. Just read the room, man. Like, this wasn't the time to be talking about AI. And I guess in reading the room, a new venture for Snail Games to invest their ARK profits on a new mobile application that's going to bring exclusive original stories from heart-racing thrillers to jaw-dropping romances to our viewers, an app called Salty TV. I can't believe I have witnessed this, and I really don't want to rant about this. Whilst there's a YouTube channel dedicated to this, and you can go and check it out, it just looks like a load of mess, really. I guess it's the thing at the moment, story recaps, miniature story recaps that are doing the rounds. If you download the app, and I really wouldn't recommend it, it's got 10k downloads already. I can't believe people are downloading this, or maybe I can because of what this alludes to. Stuff like this. Come on, man. Come on. Like, I don't want to rant. I'm sick of ranting. I don't want to rant about this stuff anymore. But my word, what is Snail Games doing? Why on earth, after failed external investments, are they now turning to something else that's completely left field, unrelated to the gaming industry, and so out of touch with bizarre titles such as My Ex's Best Friends, 7 Nights with My Ex, and Pregnant by the Bus? It's so out of touch. And again, adds more gravity to the level Snail Games are on when it comes to business practices and business ventures and investments. They have no clue, because this, if you don't know, this isn't actually corn. This is just cleverly clickbaited, but such a slimy move to produce slimy content by a slimy company that if it wasn't more apparent that Wildcard need to distance themselves from Snail Games, need to be bought from Snail Games, I think stuff like this, it just further cements how out of touch Snail Games are, and a real shame to see hard-earned money, all of the great income being generated by ARK is being reinvested to stuff like this. You know what? I can't, man. And I promised to myself I wasn't going to rant for a while, though. Good grief, Snail. You really are, like, loading up the gun and giving me the ammo all I need. Let's look at the positives. Whilst there is a giant delay, and it's definitely going to spell some doom and gloom for ARK, especially looking at competitive games coming out very soon, i.e. Dune, and especially GTA 6 sometime later this year. This is going to be a rocky year for ARK, definitely, and it's going to get bad before it gets worse. But this giant Unreal 5.5 may be a better engine upgrade than I guess I anticipated. I was afraid of this being put on a pedestal, and perhaps too much so, but with these options being available to lower end users, this could actually be a giant swing in favour to ARK Survival Ascended. We've just got a giant wait for it. How do you feel about that one? Comment below. Let me know. Until the next one, my name is Raasclark. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and as always,